Hi, Wayne Chapin from Xerillion, and this is going to be a live stream here, just talking about things that are on my mind in our practical, real-world, street-smart Microsoft cloud practice around Microsoft 365, Microsoft Phone System, and Microsoft Azure. And so I'm going to go over the things that, especially as we've talked to customers and as we've worked through things in our team, and also since that I went through Microsoft and Inspire and came back to Microsoft Partner Conference, and also things that as people have asked me questions and things like that on YouTube for comments and things like that, it kind of makes me think about things I can talk about here. And so the idea is I'm going to go ahead and talk about things that I have here. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me in the chat window. I will get to those. I'll try to remember to turn over and look at those comments, but I'm going to go ahead and go into the things that I think are important to the people who are subscribing to the Xerillion channel and are interested in the very sophisticated, advanced world of Microsoft Enterprise Cloud. So the first thing I want to do is I want to do an update about the Microsoft phone system. So I made a video in 2017, I made a video in 2018, and I'm going to make a video here in August of 2019 for an update. It'll be our third update for that. And those are some of the most watched videos we have. And as we've evolved having a phone practice here at Xerillion, which we went from having a box on the wall phone system to having a voice over IP phone system from the same manufacturer to moving into the Microsoft phone system, and in our transition through that, and also then bringing that over to our customers. So it's been quite an interesting 2 years, as now we've got about 700-800 end users on the Microsoft phone system. Those people are also inside of Microsoft 365 and Office 365. So in August, I'm going to do a webinar about that for updates in our practice around the Microsoft phone system, what's working, what doesn't, how we put things in, especially as it evolves around Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams, and then transition that Microsoft has going into Microsoft Teams. So I'll have that webinar. I will do that live, and then I will also be making a video that I will post over here on our YouTube channel about that as well. And so when people see that, you can comment on it, but it'll be the state of the art of the Microsoft phone system. An important notice, and I saw this last night, is that Skype for Business Online is going end of life in July of 2021. So we knew that was coming. We knew it's an important consideration with Microsoft that they want to get rid of Skype for Business, but in favor of Teams. And I can tell you, we used Skype for Business for years. It was great for what it did, but Teams is much better. It's much more powerful. And as I will talk about shortly here, for Microsoft, from the partner conference, the most important thing, if you are a Microsoft fan, if you're interested in Microsoft cloud technology, Microsoft 365 is their number one priority, and a subset of that then is Microsoft Teams as the integration into the Microsoft 365 system for company communications, for files, and then the Microsoft phone system. So there's a lot of people out there. Again, if we go back to our 700-800 end users on the Microsoft phone system, there's a lot of them out there that got moved into Skype for Business. That's how they integrate with the Microsoft phone system. That's how they do instant messaging back and forth. But Microsoft's focus is Teams, and they have begun moving our clients little by little, a little bit of tough love, saying, come on, you need to move along. And a lot of these companies are very happy doing what they're doing right now. They don't want to learn a new system, but they need to. And the other thing is, why would you want to stay inside of Microsoft, or why would you want to stay inside of Skype for Business Online when Microsoft's putting all of their effort inside of Microsoft Teams? All the new features are going into Microsoft Teams. All the development effort is going into Teams. There's no new features going into Skype for Business. So that's something to keep in mind. And so we're going to be moving our clients along that are still in Skype for Business, and we've been engaging all of them to go ahead and make these transitions. And it's also important to know in our transition too, for this next point, which is that we've moved into Yealink phones. So we used to use Polycom because those integrated nicely with Skype for Business and the Microsoft phone system in that way. But Yealink got really ahead of the game on that, and they now integrate directly with Teams. So, and another nice point about that is that, so here are the two phones that we work with: the Yealink T55A and the Yealink T56A. Now, I put this little arrow here because I want to show you something that is interesting to me as I look at this. And as we put in Microsoft phone system and we put it in behind Teams, first, I'm going to tell you how I work with Teams and the phone system. I have a monitor. I have the Teams desktop app on my computer. Well, it's actually on my laptop, but I have it on the monitor here. And then I work with it sometimes with the headset, sometimes with a lapel mic right here, and then I have the speakers. I have the sound coming through the speakers on my laptop. But typically we'd be working with it with a headset. And if you take this headset and you connect it into your computer, and then you're basically dialing and working with the phone system as the desktop app on your computer. People get uncomfortable with that sometimes because they're used to having a desk phone, a separate device sitting on their desk. So they have their email, they have their files, they have everything else in their world on their computer, but they don't have a connection to the public telephone network through that computer. They're so used to having a desk phone, a separate device on their desk just for picking up the phone and getting on the public telephone network. And because they're used to having that handset. But if you look right here, this little arrow, this phone, it's basically a little tiny computer, and it's running the Teams mobile app. That's what it's doing. That's it. So it's funny to me that you can pretty much do the same thing here. You can run Teams on your computer. You can have a headset, or if you don't like that headset, hey, another thing you can do is if you really want to have that desk phone experience, you could literally stick a USB handset into your computer. Here's the speaker, here's the microphone, and you're off to the races. Okay. Now, that's just me, and I like having everything in one spot. All right. I like when I pick up my laptop and I take it with me. I'm going to the airport, or I'm going to a hotel, I'm going to a conference, I'm going to a client site. My email, my files, my voice, all my security infrastructure is right there on my laptop, or it's in the mobile app on my phone. And that's the whole other subject, is the Teams mobile app connecting to the Microsoft phone system. I mean, here's another option for you. Everybody's got a phone. Generally, people don't want to give customers their personal cell phone numbers. They want to give customers their company phone number. No problem. They can just download the Teams mobile app, which has the phone system built into it. They have a direct phone number. It's all tied into the company phone system. They download it, they tie it in the company Wi-Fi, and voila, company phone. And that's something that I've been thinking about lately too, is that sometimes companies have a cost of roughly $200 a desk phone here. And a lot of these people that have desk phones too, they're traveling. They're not even in the office a lot of the time as well. So they might as well just instead of having the app run here on this desk phone, they can have the app running on their personal mobile phone. And during work hours, they just turn on the Teams app. It just runs there. It rings just like any other phone. And they can go ahead and they can plug in their headset if they want to, or they can talk to it like this. And then when they're done for the day, they can just close out the app, and then voicemails will go into, and the calls will go into voicemail. But they're completely tied into that system. And then they could potentially avoid this cost for people who really don't need to have the phone there all day long. But again, I want to be sensitive to the understanding that some people still would rather just be able to pick up a phone and a handset and be able to talk just like that. They want to be able to punch in phone numbers, and that's fine. And that's what we do here. So the other thing I want to talk about Yealink, we can get carried away here, so I'm going to stay on task here, is that with the Yealink phone, we could do something different we couldn't do with the Polycom phones. With the Yealink phones, with the Polycom phones, what we would have to do is if we were doing a phone project for a customer, we would have to have the phone shipped to us. We would have to program them, put them back in boxes, and ship them out to the customer. Well, with the modernization of deployment that you can get in Microsoft Teams, what we're able to do is take the A-Link phones and then just have them shipped directly to the customer. So we can figure all the back end for the phone system, the call trees, the call queues, all that sort of stuff. And then the other thing is that for each user, then we can go ahead and start configuring the settings for the users. And then all the client has to do then is unbox the phones, plug it into the network, and then log that user in, test calls in, calls out, and then that's it. Because all the configuration, the settings for that phone, updates for the firmware can be delivered through the Microsoft Cloud. And that's what we do now. And so the beautiful thing about that is it really drastically lowers the cost of deploying the Microsoft phone system. The Microsoft phone system on its own is a very cost-effective, really nice functioning phone system. And we've been on it for 2.5 years at Xerillion. We use it heavily. And again, 700-800 users across roughly 30 customers have the Microsoft phone system. So we're very experienced deploying it. We know the ins, we know the outs, what works, things you have to have in place to make it all work well. But the bottom line is that it works really nicely and it's quick to deploy. So it's really cool that we have this technology now and we can lower the cost of getting this system in. So if you have Microsoft 365, E3 or E5, and you can add in the Microsoft phone system, and now you are in a situation where those users have a company phone on their desk, and on their desktop app, on their computer, or in a mobile device. Okay, I want to talk a little bit, and I haven't discussed this lately, is that the headsets, okay? So we talk a lot about headsets and when we're talking to customers. And I think a couple important things to know here is that we put Jabra in, and because it's high quality, it's a good price, and they work really well. The sound quality is excellent. And I want to go over why you would use these different models here. So when we're doing headsets, there's the Jabra Evolve 40, there's the Jabra Evolve 65, and the Jabra Evolve 75. So the Jabra Evolve 40, this is the lowest cost one, and the interesting thing, and this is wired. So we got a single ear, and it's got a wired connection. And I have this, I keep this in my backpack, and I use it actually on my desk quite a bit. I have all three models, all right? But the thing that's nice about this is its cost, and then the other thing is this little adapter right here, you can unplug. You can actually unplug the headset. And so imagine this situation. You are, your computer fries out for whatever reason, or you have an internet outage. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do about our phones? I've done this before. Great. Let me go ahead and pull up the Teams app on my phone, right here on my Android phone, and I launch it, and I take this headset right there, is disconnected right there, plug it right into my phone, get Teams back up, and get into the conference call, get back into the call, whatever. It is awesome to have that as a backup phone system. And this thing makes it really, really easy to do that. And not to mention that if you're traveling around and you don't want to spend money on the wireless version, which I'll talk about that in a second, this works great on an airplane too. You just take this. I mean, the sound is excellent. If you get the dual ear, by the way. This is the single ear. There's a dual ear version of this, but if you have the dual ear version, plug it right into your phone. Again, I have an Android Galaxy Note, but then you're listening to your music on Spotify. That works beautifully. And then of course you have this little control here, turn the volume up or down or mute it, which is really nice. And then if we get into the Jabra Evolve 65, the difference between here, when you'd get into a single ear versus a dual ear, now these are both wireless. But this here would be somebody who wants wireless. They don't want a wired connection. And it is a quieter office environment. Okay, so then you can just get by with having one ear covered. And then the other thing is you get into the dongle. So this would have Bluetooth, but you now also have a dongle here, which is it's a better quality system sounding for the Jabra phone. If you want to use Bluetooth, fine. But the Jabra, you also get the dongle if you want to use the proprietary wireless connection. You don't have to though. But again, quieter environment. But now if you get in a situation where you have a noisier open office environment and you want to be able to talk in your own little world, you want the noise canceling, you also want the the noise canceling, so the quality, you have the best microphone possible, then you would get into the Jabra Evolve 75. So this would be for somebody who wants wireless and they're in a noisier office environment. This one, quieter office environment, but it's wireless. And then this one right here, it's a good entry cost point, but they also can now easily switch on to their phone as a backup. But I also say here, the Jabra Evolve 65, this is, to me, it's akin to having like the Bose headsets on the airplane, because it has the noise canceling. They're super soft, super cushy, and I connect into it with Bluetooth. I run Spotify when I'm just listening to music on the plane. Sounds awesome. It really, really sounds good. And with the noise canceling, it's fantastic. So these are the three that we set up for clients when we're talking about headsets. And I want to give you a little bit of background, a little, practical, street smart information about this when you're looking in this. And I'll probably have a separate, 5-7 minute video about Jabra in the next couple months here as well. And I also want to go back to Microsoft 365 as it relates to being on your phone. Let's see. Hector, I see you here. Let me, I'll come back to you in just a second. I'll answer your question. One of the things here is that how important Microsoft years ago said they want to have a cloud first, mobile first strategy. And okay, great. Sounds good. But boy, the Teams mobile app works so good on your phone. And what I say to people, I have another video here on my YouTube channel. If you understand text messaging, you understand Teams. And then Teams, of course, is a whole other group of things you can do on it. And I have another video that's very in-depth about all the things you can do inside of Microsoft Teams beside just company channel conversations or chat channel conversations or audio conferencing, video conferencing, desktop sharing, live streaming. We use Teams live events to do our webinars. We don't do them on YouTube. We do them on Teams live events. And so it's such a powerful system, but there's so much parity between the desktop version and the mobile app version. So if you want to bring this into your company, the simplicity of texting, you really want to, if you like the simplicity of texting, and that's how you contact your friends and family, you don't email them, well, you bring that same sort of thing into your office environment. You would do it through the Teams mobile app. And again, put the phone system right in there, boom. You're good to go with your business phone system. All right, let's see. Hector, is the Yealink phone system available for outside the US and Canada? Okay, it looks like Will jumped in on that question. I don't, good question. Will, I don't know if you knew that specifically. I think that's what you're referring to there. As far as Colombia, I see you responded to Colombia. Okay. Got it. And so as far as local phone numbers, that's a good question, and Will is responding there. Microsoft is rolling that stuff out country by country right now. As a matter of fact, at the Microsoft Inspire conference, getting Australia on board with their local numbers it's a brand new thing that they're rolling out over there. As a matter of fact, 7 months ago, I think Will and I got a call from Australia from people that wanted to put the Microsoft phone system in, and they were even ready to take US-based phone numbers. They really wanted to be in the Microsoft phone system, but fortunately now it looks like they're going to be able to get those numbers out. But Microsoft is working on that. I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, and it was a prospect, and this is true. And there's a video on from Microsoft Ignite, the tech conference 3 years ago that I went to, and it was one session. It was the best session of that conference. But it was where a guy has been at Microsoft. This one guy has been at Microsoft for like 25 years or so, and he's been there since they tried to do their own telco, their own voice system. They tried to build themselves, gave up, decided they were going to buy Skype, brought that in. But the question is, well, why were they adding that on there? And he was talking about the strategy back in the, the good old, when Bill Gates was at the helm and stuff like that. Microsoft wants to be a global telecom. I mean, that's one of the things they want to do. but that's absolutely on the radar. And they know that is key to driving Teams. They know that is key to driving Microsoft 365. They know that is key to driving Microsoft Azure. They know it. But it is complicated, and there's all these different tax structures and things like that need to be put in place. It's very and they're getting there. It's incredible. But make no mistake, for country by country by country by country, they want to be able to bring the Microsoft phone system with local phone numbers into each single country. All right. I've been wanting to make a separate video with some cuts. It was cool to hear him talk about this story. He was in there in the office with Bill Gates, and Bill Gates was mad that they weren't making progress or something like that. And he tells the story. It was really well done. Hopefully, I know where the video is. I've been wanting to make a cut of that. I'll talk to my editor soon, but everybody should hear the story. It's fascinating, but for sure, they want to bring it country by country. All right. Looks like Will's responding to a few of those. All right. Going pretty quick here. Mohammed's asking about direct routing. Do I need audio conferencing license to have audio conferencing? So Mohammed, if you want to do audio conferencing, you will either need Microsoft or Office 365 E5 or Microsoft 365 E5 to be able to do audio conferencing, or it's an add-on to Microsoft 365 E3 or Office 365 E3, and I believe you can do it with the business subscription as well. We really just set up Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. We're starting to put more business in place. So those are the ones we work with. Now, and I want to say something around that. To me, Office 365 on its own is not a complete solution. Seriously. Office 365 for most people, and again, probably getting off a little tangent here. I'm going to get myself back around to this, but it's an important point. Office 365 on its own is, for most companies, it's just getting email moved to Exchange Online and Office desktop apps for everybody. And that's where they stop. They don't do anything with OneDrive. They don't do anything with SharePoint Online. They don't do anything with security features. Most of them don't even have multi-factor authentication enabled. But the foundation for a Microsoft Enterprise Cloud system is everybody should be running the latest version of Windows and the subscription version of Windows. Everybody should be running the latest version of Office and the subscription version of Office. And then from there, everybody should be in Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Phone System, have Azure Active Directory Premium, ideally Plan 2 integrated, and Microsoft Intune integrated in their system. And again, I have another video about that. But that being said, I would go down the path of having Microsoft 365 E3 if you can do it, but you will need that subscription or an add-on for audio conferencing. Okay, my company uses Microsoft Phone System, and I have just recently got the Yealink T56A. I think the quality of the phone and phone system is actually very good. Oh, great. Thanks for sharing that, Seth. Appreciate that. Mohammed, if I had Microsoft Teams rooming system, what kind of license would I have to enable it? Okay. All right, great. Okay, great. So I appreciate, looks like Will, you're taking some of those calls. Will is on our sales team. He works with me and we work very closely. And so if you want to talk to us about Microsoft 365, Microsoft Phone System, Microsoft Azure, any of that sort of stuff, whether you're the IT manager, the quasi-IT manager, or you're in charge of the relationship with your IT company, your outsourced IT company, your first stop is to talk to Will. So you can, I have the number here. You can email us support@Xerillion.com, or you can call us 847-995-9800 to set up the call. And again, even if you just want to talk about some stuff, and whether we work together in the future or not, we do just work with US-based businesses, though. It's an important note. I won't get into the whole thing about that. We're a Microsoft Cloud solution provider. We sell subscriptions based out of the United States. As far as I know right now, if we want to do that for other countries, we actually physically have to have an office located in that country. It's a bummer. We certainly get calls from people around the world, and it's neat to talk to them and happy to talk to them. Really, it's a fun topic to talk about, and there's no greater time in my career. I'm 46. There's no greater time in my career to be in IT than it is now. It's unbelievable. I went from doing on-premise server work, small business server, Exchange server, so so many of us have, to cloud's coming, and you're wondering, well, am I going to have a job with all this cloud stuff coming down the pipe? Now to thinking, I can't believe how sophisticated these systems are and how much we're needed in the world as cloud experts. So anyway, happy to talk about it. Let's see here. I'm going to Will, looks like Will's answering the questions, and I'm going to go ahead and move on here. Microsoft 365 is Microsoft's #1 priority. I can't state that enough. Last year when I went to Inspire, again, Microsoft's partner conference, Azure was the #1 priority. Azure. And the thing about Azure is this: it's cool to know. I'm certified in it. We have several certified people in it. We have a lot of Azure projects in place right now, and we do a lot of Azure sales and implementations. The thing about Azure right now for most IT pros is unless you're a developer, Azure would be moving legacy Windows applications into the cloud. That's it, which isn't that exciting. Imagine if you are an IT manager of a company, or you're again a quasi IT manager. Again, your full-time job is not IT, but you're handling that. And you have 100, 200 users, and you've got a substantial business there. But the problem here is that you have these legacy Windows applications that are really slowing you down. You want to get into Microsoft 365, you want to get into the Microsoft phone system, but you got all these legacy Windows apps that are important to the business. You can't just throw them out. You can't just replace them with a web-based version, because we all know the problem with the web-based version of this stuff. The web-based version usually doesn't do everything that the Windows version does. So they can't just easily make that migration. So all you're forced to do, if you get a mandate saying, okay, we're going to move all this, we're not going to buy any more on-premise equipment, we got to move it all in the cloud. Well, you're forced to take that file server, add in a domain controller, put a SQL server up there, set up a remote desktop server, and basically virtualize those Windows applications. And that's your Azure implementation. But at some point, the company is going to say, well, when can we move this into a web app? We don't want to host this anymore. The CFO does not like seeing these line items as far as budgets. So then it comes back down and say, well, we don't want to add more infrastructure. We don't want to add more full-time IT staff. How can we reduce that? And so they want to move into web apps and then into Microsoft 365 cloud services. Great. So if you're a developer, there's a lot of promise there in Azure to make born in the cloud applications. But for IT pros, the infrastructure people, you got to get into Microsoft 365. That is, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Phone System, Microsoft Intune, Azure Active Directory Premium, not the Azure Active Directory Free, not the Azure Active Directory Basic, Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2. Okay, Microsoft 365 Enterprise E5. There is not enough people out there to do that work, and that is Microsoft is now the most valuable company in the world because of their cloud systems. Okay, but again, Microsoft 365 is their #1 priority, and a subset of that is the Teams app is their #1 app that they're focusing in on. Okay. Now, for IT pros out there, IT managers, or people interested to reduce their on-premise infrastructure, and in their Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure is absolutely going to be huge. So we're all familiar with the idea of a terminal server, a remote desktop server. They're used all over the place, everywhere. Okay. But Windows Virtual Desktop is new technology that's only available inside of Microsoft Azure. So, with a terminal server, call it a terminal server because I'm used to that, but a remote desktop server, it's basically a Windows Server 2012, Windows Server 2016. And so it looks like Windows 10, great. But then what happens is you have a session-based, you have multiple people inside those sessions working at the same time. It's great technology. And I remember putting that stuff together in literally the year 2001. I was really starting to put those things in, that kind of technology. People still do that all over the place. There's so many implementations out there using a quote-unquote terminal server. When you move that into Azure, and that's how we get legacy Windows applications moved into Azure. That's how we virtualize them. That's how we get the last remaining bits of a server network out of the client site. At their office. What we end up having to do is we have to build an Azure virtual network. We have to put in an Azure a virtual firewall, usually a WatchGuard or a Cisco Meraki, and then we have to put in some virtual machines, a connection broker, domain controller, licensing broker, a remote desktop gateway. Then there's probably a SQL server involved, and then there's, of course, the remote desktop server. And that becomes very pricey, and we still have to add on, for that remote desktop server, we have to add in the Windows licensing. And then we also have to add in the remote desktop services licensing as well. Well, with Windows Virtual Desktop, everybody that has Microsoft 365 from the F1 subscription all the way to E5, all of them are licensed for Windows Virtual Desktop. So all of them are licensed to have a Windows 10 multi-session host server. It's incredible. So all we have to do in Azure then, if we lift them up to Azure, we give them a virtual desktop, then all we have to do is pay for compute and storage. We don't have any Windows Server licensing to add on. We don't have any remote desktop services to add on. And now it's not just about migrating legacy Windows applications into Microsoft Azure. Now it's about saying we're going to create this security where people log in with whatever device they want. I don't care, Mac, PC, home computer, Windows Home, Windows Pro, Windows Enterprise, it just doesn't matter, because they're going to connect into their Windows Virtual Desktop that we maintain in our Azure Virtual Network. And that data stays inside that virtual desktop, and that user can connect in with whatever device they want. It doesn't matter, because then the company is out of the business of maintaining Windows computers or Mac computers. They can let whatever that user wants to bring in, whatever they're comfortable working on, it doesn't matter. They connect into their virtual desktop in Azure. They don't have to pay for Windows Server licensing. They don't have to pay remote desktop licensing. They are licensed because they're Microsoft 365 subscription. And of course, because they're Microsoft 365 subscription, they're licensed for Windows. They're licensed for the Office apps, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Phone System. Okay, you can see where this goes. And so for IT infrastructures everywhere, for IT pros, IT managers, or even people playing the role of IT manager, that is huge. And I can tell you, 2 years in a row, since last year at Microsoft Ignite, when they announced this was coming, every session that had to do with Windows Virtual Desktop was jam-packed. There's a couple I couldn't get in. It was so full. There was so much interest in this. So anyway, I'm going to be, after I get the phone system video and webinar done here in August, for the rest of the year, all the way straight through to the holidays, it's going to be Azure, Windows Virtual Desktops, and everything around that. If you look at my last Azure video, which was a beast to put together, you can probably see I've come a long way as far as making the videos, but it was tough to put all that content together, and now that's going to be refreshed, and I'm going to consolidate that 1 hour video into the most meaningful stuff, and a lot of it's going to be around Windows Virtual Desktop. And again, it's worth noting that Windows Virtual Desktop comes in all versions of Microsoft 365. And that blew me away when I saw that at Microsoft Inspire, that even the F1 version, this was for frontline workers, which is a very limited version of Microsoft 365, but it's perfect for people who are out in the field, or at a kiosk or something like that, or they're people that are in front of a computer, is like somebody at a hotel, for example, who's sitting there or standing there as customers are coming in, again, on the front line. And they don't need a computer. They could just have their all the company apps on their personal cell phone, and that's how they integrate with email and Teams and the phone system and stuff like that. But every one of those people get a Windows Virtual Desktop license. Okay, so we're at 2:03. Looks like Will's still answering questions here. Looks like he's handled that. Let me just take a quick look at anything else, because that was the last thing that I was planning to go over, and it's 2:03. So I really was planning to keep this at 20 minutes. So it looks like so the last thing around files in Microsoft Teams, because that's what the conversation was going about, back and forth about the chat. I will say this, that right now we used to take people's file servers and we would migrate those into SharePoint document libraries. Okay, so it was ridiculous that we would have this wonderful Office 365 or Microsoft 365 infrastructure with cloud infrastructure with SharePoint Online and OneDrive, and then we were getting people's email moved over, but we were taking their files and keeping a file server there, or keeping it in Dropbox or Box.com. And the interesting thing is that's what people were doing, or in most cases they're just leaving their file server there because they can't figure out how to get their files moved over into SharePoint, and they're uncomfortable doing that. We don't do SharePoint document libraries anymore. We want to move people into Teams files. So again, I had made a video maybe 5 months ago about this whole concept, and we can still make it look like, it still looks like map drives and Windows File Explorer for the users. Everything we would normally hook people up with SharePoint document libraries and make them comfortable so they can access the files in Windows File Explorer. They can do drag and drop and all that sort of stuff. But behind the scenes, it used to be SharePoint document libraries, and we would access the SharePoint interface for those files. Now we do it with Teams. So the document management behind Teams is SharePoint anyway. Again, I won't get into that whole conversation, but we would set up the file folder structure inside of Teams. And also, but your users would still, if they don't want to get into Teams or that freaks people out, we'll still set it up, sync it with OneDrive so it looks like map drives on the Windows File Explorer. But when we engage with somebody to move them into Microsoft 365, and a key component of that is, and they're usually talking to us because they want us to help get the files moved over, we will map things out based on Teams. And if you don't want to do it now, or even in the future that you can see, fine. But down the road, if you want to, it's all right there. We don't have to shift and migrate things over from then SharePoint document libraries into Teams later. And I will tell you this, if you get the Microsoft phone system into Teams, and then you just literally the training concepts that you need to accomplish with Teams probably take 15 minutes. And we have a whole other thing on training. We have a training platform we use around Microsoft 365. We have a company we bring to you and we sell you their subscriptions. It's super cheap. It's $3 per user per month as long as you need it, which is video-based training that are 30-second long segments to 3-minute long segments, just YouTube style, that take you through. Here's a cool thing you can do in Teams. Here's a cool thing you can do in OneDrive. Here's a cool thing you can do inside of Office 365. And all this company does is make videos around Microsoft 365. It assumes you know your way around computers. You just don't know what you don't know, and we're going to show you the cool stuff. That's what this training does. That style of training, as far as understanding Teams, you're probably a half hour away per user from understanding the things you need. And the Microsoft phone system will drive that. If the files are inside that, it'll drive that. But the last thing I'll say about that is it's tough because a lot of people, you have a lot of very successful managers that have been in business a while. They're more senior in their careers, and so they've been very happy and content just to use a desk phone with a handset and Outlook and email, even though email is a big trash dumpster and it's a big unsorted mess. They're very comfortable doing that, and they can look, hey, I've been very successful operating this way. I'm comfortable. I don't need to learn a new thing with Teams and all that sort of stuff. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But it's amazing because it's a little tiny little jump, and then you guys are off to the races. Anyway, that's another subject.